Welcome to the year 2045. The world is an absolute dumpster fire. And nowhere is that more obvious than Columbus, Ohio. Meet our hero, Wade Watts. Like most people these days, Wade lives in the stacks, a sprawling, sketchy neighborhood made entirely of mobile homes stacked on top of each other like a giant, rusty game of Jenga. Reality is incredibly depressing, so humanity has collectively decided to just check out and plug in. Wade slips on his haptic gear, drops his visor over his eyes, and just like that, the drab gray of the real world shatters into the blinding neon paradise of the OASIS. This isn't just a video game. It is an infinitely expanding virtual universe where the only limit is your own imagination. You can surf a 50-foot wave in Hawaii, or you can go on a casual hike up Mount Everest with Batman. As Wade's avatar Parsifal drops into the main login hub, we are instantly bombarded with pop culture magic. Look closely and you can spot Bopop casually strolling by. Entire planets made of Minecraft blocks, and Tracer from Overwatch zipping through the crowds. But the Oasis isn't just a place to hang out. It's the center of the biggest scavenger hunt in human history. The creator of this digital utopia, a brilliant but super socially awkward tech genius named James Halliday, passed away. But instead of leaving his fortune to charity or some greedy board of directors, he left behind a massive Willy Wonka-style video message. Halliday's wizard avatar Anorak announced to the world that he hid an Easter egg deep inside the Oasis. To find it, players have to collect 3 hidden keys: the copper, the jade, and the crystal dot. The first person to find all 3 keys and unlock the final gate doesn't just get a high score. They win $500 billion in cold hard cash and total absolute control over the entire Oasis. Naturally, this announcement blew the internet's collective mind. Millions of players, known as Gunthers short for egg hunters, dedicated their entire lives to studying every single movie, song, and video game Halliday ever loved, hoping to find a clue. 5 years have passed since the contest began, and so far, the massive scoreboard is completely empty. No one has found a single key, and the hype is starting to die down. But Wade isn't giving up. He knows Halliday's mind inside and out, and he's about to prove that a kid from the stacks can actually change the universe to get that first key. You have to survive the most absolutely unhinged, dangerous street race ever conceived. Welcome to a digital New York City that has been converted into a massive, twisting, gravity-defying obstacle course. The scoreboard might be empty, but thousands of hopeful players still line up at the starting grid every single day, ready to lose their virtual lives and all their hard-earned loot for a shot at glory. The penalty for dying in the Oasis is brutal. You lose your gear, your money, and your character resets all the way back to level 1. It's called getting zeroed out, and it keeps the stakes incredibly high. Wade rolls up to the starting line in style, driving none other than the legendary DeLorean from Back to the Future, complete with the glowing flux capacitor and those iconic gull-wing doors. He pulls up next to his virtual best friend Dak, a towering cyborg mechanic who prefers piloting a massive, heavily armored monster truck. Looking around the starting grid is like a nerd's ultimate fever dream. You can see the Mach 5 from Speed Racer, the classic 1966 Batmobile, and the iconic van from the AT Mall revving their engines. Suddenly, the lights flash green, and the race erupts into pure, unadulterated chaos. Cars are instantly flipped, crushed, and obliterated into glittering piles of digital coins as the track itself tries to kill the drivers. Wreckage flies everywhere. Just as Wade hits 88 miles per hour, a giant, roaring Tyrannosaurus Rex bursts through the asphalt, snapping its jaws and eating a bunch of unlucky racers whole. Wade deftly maneuvers through the flying debris. But the real challenge is just ahead. That's when a legendary independent Gunther Namadart 3 misstreaks past him. She is tearing up the asphalt Onkaneta S bright red motorcycle from the anime masterpiece Akira, executing sleek drifts that defy the laws of physics. Wade is immediately smitten. But there's no time for romance, because they are approaching the final stretch near the Empire State Building. This is where every single race ends in disaster, thanks to the ultimate gatekeeper, smashing the track to pieces and turning the lead cars into scrap metal. Art 3 mistries a risky jump, but Kong swats her down. Realizing she's about to get zeroed out, Wade floors the spinning the car out to shield her from the giant ape's crushing fist after that brutal reality check at the finish line. Wade realizes that trying to beat King Kong with brute force and speed is a total dead end. So, he heads over to the Halliday massive, incredibly detailed digital library that acts as a fully immersive 3D museum of the eccentric creator's entire life, guided by the robotic, snooty, but highly efficient curator. Wade spends hours scrubbing through old holographic memories of Halliday, interacting with his former business partner, Ogden Morrow, while watching a memory of Halliday complaining about how video game creators always try to push players forward. Wade catches a subtle, almost throwaway line. Halliday mumbles something about wishing he could just put the pedal to the metal and drive backward as fast as he can. Boom, lightbulb moment. The next day, Wade lines up at the starting grid in his trusty but this time, when the traffic light turns green and the rest of the chaotic pack peels out in a cloud of burnt rubber, Wade doesn't move forward. He waits a beat, throws the car into reverse, and absolutely floors it backward, straight into a solid concrete wall. But instead of crashing into a fiery pile of scattered polygons, the wall simply dissolves. Wade drops down into a secret subterranean racetrack hidden completely beneath the chaotic New York City streets. It is a smooth, neon-lit, underground highway, completely free of giant T-Rexes, swinging wrecking balls, and hyper-aggressive rival drivers. Above him, through the translucent glass ceiling of the tunnel, we get a ridiculously cool visual of King Kong smashing the absolute daylights out of the other racers on the surface track, totally oblivious to the DeLorean cruising smoothly right under his massive ape feet. Wade gracefully jumps the final gap in the track, landing perfectly in a lush central park right in front of a hidden glowing doorway. He steps out of his car, enters the peaceful clearing, and is greeted by Halliday's towering wizard avatar, Anorak, who formally hands him the legendary copper key. For the very first time in 5 long years, a name finally appears on the massive global scoreboard. Wade is instantly catapulted from an absolute nobody to the single most famous person in the entire OASIS. He's rewarded with a massive injection of digital currency, and the next cryptic clue, while the classic retro arcade game Joust flashes proudly on the giant hovering leaderboard in the sky. The ultimate game is finally afoot, and our boy from the stacks is officially in first place. Wade's monumental gravity-defying victory doesn't just make him famous, it paints a massive target directly on his virtual back. Enter our villain, Nolan Sorrento, the slick, ruthless CEO of Innovative Online Industries, or IOI for short. While Gunthers like Wade treat the Oasis like a sacred religion, Sorrento sees it as the ultimate cash cow. If IOI wins the contest, they plan to slap a price tag on everything, flooding your field of vision with endless, unskippable pop-up ads, and corporatizing a free world. To guarantee victory, Sorrento has built a literal virtual army known as Thossics. These guys are basically indentured servants, logging in from sterile real-world pods, driving identical, completely boring avatars with 6-digit barcodes on their chests. They don't play for the love of the game. They play to conquer. But the Sixers are suddenly falling behind, because Wade just gave the entire world the cheat code. Seeing Parsifal's name on the board, Art 3 Miss quickly figures out the driving backward trick and secures her own copper key. Soon after, each blasts through the underground tunnel, followed closely by 2 incredibly skilled independent Gunthers, a towering, stoic samurai named Daito, and an agile ninja named Sho. These top 5 players become instant global legends, officially dubbed by the public as the High Five. For the first time ever, everyday gamers are dominating the scoreboard, completely humiliating Sorrento's trillion-dollar corporate war machine. But grabbing the first key is only the beginning. Now they have to figure out where the heck the second one is hiding. The copper key unlocks a new cryptic puzzle, leading our heroes straight into a cozy, deeply personal digital space, a flawless, interactive recreation of James Halliday's messy childhood bedroom from the 1980s. This room is an absolute goldmine for eagle-eyed pop culture nerds. The wood-paneled walls are plastered with vintage awesomeness, including a very prominent poster for David Cronenberg's classic sci-fi horror flick, The Fly. If you look closely at the clutter scattered across the floor and the shelves, you can spot stacks of legendary retro comic books and classic action figures just waiting to be overanalyzed. It is a beautiful, nostalgic trip down memory lane, but for the High Five, it is a highly complex crime scene. They know that somewhere in this pixel-perfect shrine to the 1980s lies the clue to the Jade Key, and the high-stakes race against EOI is officially on. But Thigh Sixers are suddenly falling behind, because Wade just gave the entire world the cheat code, seeing Parzival's name on the board. Art 3 Miss quickly figures out the driving backward trick and secures her own copper key. Soon after, each blasts through the underground tunnel, followed closely by two incredibly skilled, independent Tungders, a towering, stoic samurai named Dato and an agile ninja Nemecho. Together, these top 5 players become instant global legends, officially dubbed by the public as the High Five. For the first time ever, everyday gamers are dominating the scoreboard, completely humiliating Gorant's trillion-dollar corporate war machine. But grabbing the first key is only the beginning. Now they have to figure out where the heck the second one is hiding. With his pockets literally overflowing with digital gold from winning the copper key, Wade does exactly what any teenage gamer would do. He goes on a massive virtual shopping spree. Parsifal upgrades his gear, buys some incredibly slick outfits, and scores a date with his absolute digital crush. Art 3 Miss. They agree to meet up at the hottest, most exclusive hangout in the entire OASIS, a zero-gravity nightclub called the Distracted Globe. Stepping into this club is an absolute sensory overload. It is a massive neon-drenched sphere where the dance floor literally floats in midair. As the classic Honey 980 South synthpop beats of New Order's Blue Monday blast through the speakers, the pop culture cameos come hitting you fast and hard. If you look around the glowing bar and the floating platforms, you can easily spot iconic villains like Deathstroke, Harley Quinn, and even the Joker just hanging out in the background. It is the ultimate geek party, and Parzival is the guest of honor. He finds Art 3 Miss pose, and the two share a genuinely magical floating dance sequence. As they spin through the zero-gravity air, we get some real insight into what drives them. Wade is riding the high of instant fame and fortune, thinking the Oasis is just a game to be won. Art 3 Miss is dead serious. She explains that if EOI wins the contest, the Oasis will be completely destroyed by corporate greed. She is fighting for the literal soul of the world, and she needs Wade to wake up and take things seriously. But before Wade can fully process this heavy lore drop, the date is violently interrupted. Enter IROK, a towering, heavily armed, skull-chested mercenary who basically works as the ultimate dark web hitman for Nolan's. IROK has been tracking Wade, and he tips off EOI to their exact location. In a matter of seconds, the romantic synthpop vibes are shattered as a heavily armed squad of corporatizers crash the party. The zero-gravity dance floor instantly turns into a chaotic, floating war zone. Blasters are firing, avatars are getting zeroed out into bursts of coins left and right, and Parzival and Art 3 Miss are forced to pull their own weapons. They back-to-back blast their way out of the club, narrowly escaping the ambush, but the message is crystal clear. IOI is no longer just trying to win a scavenger hunt. They are actively hunting the High Five. The copper key unlocks a new cryptic puzzle, leading our heroes straight into a cozy, deeply personal digital space. A flawless, interactive recreation of James Halliday's messy childhood bedroom from the 1980s. This room is an absolute goldmine for eagle-eyed pop culture nerds. The wood-paneled walls are plastered with vintage awesome, including a very prominent poster for David Cronenberg's classic sci-fi horror flick, The Fly. After surviving that chaotic zero-gravity shootout, Wade gets a massive and incredibly terrifying reality check. Nolan Sorrento realizes that his army of corporate goons can't beat Parzival in a fair fight. So he decides to try a completely different tactic: bribery, while minding his own business in the Oasis. Wade is suddenly ripped from his environment and forcefully titled straight into a slick, high-tech digital boardroom. Sitting across from him is Sorrento's avatar, projecting an overly friendly, fake-nice corporate smile. Sorrento rolls out the red carpet, offering Wade a multi-million-dollar contract, a lavish real-world penthouse, and all the pristine high-speed gaming gear he could ever dream of. All Wade has to do is help EOI find the remaining keys and hand over the Oasis. It is a ridiculously tempting offer for a kid living in a rusty trailer park. But Wade is no sellout. Instead of just saying no, Wade decides to test the CEO's supposed geek credentials. He starts grilling Sorrento on deep-cut pop culture trivia, specifically about James Halliday's favorite high school movies. Sorrento tries to play along, relying on a team of Pinocchio researchers feeding him answers through his earpiece, but he fumbles the bag completely. Wade brilliantly calls out the corporate charade, humiliating the billionaire CEO right to his face, and confidently rejects the Hallow deal. But poking a ruthless billionaire bear comes with deadly consequences. Remember IROK, the skull-chesty hitman? He managed to overhear Wade casually drop his real name during that romantic dance with Art 3 Miss. Now, Sorrento knows exactly who Percival is in the physical world. The fake smile immediately vanishes, and Sorrento decides to play Dirty Dot in the real world. Columbus, Ohio. OI deploys a swarm of heavily armed, menacing drones straight toward the stacks. Wade is sitting in his secret van hideout when he hears the high-pitched whine of the drones outside. He looks up just in time to see a massive, devastating explosion rip through the jumbled tower of mobile homes where he lives. The blast turns the metal structures into a towering inferno of twisted debris and smoke. Wade can only watch in absolute horror as the entire structure collapses, instantly killing his Aunt Alice and everyone else inside. Just like that, the fun and games are officially over. The hunt for the Easter egg isn't just a virtual game for digital coins anymore. It is a terrifying life-or-death battle in the real world. And Wade is now a terrified fugitive on the run, still reeling from the fiery destruction of his home. Wade is completely terrified and wandering the rainy, neon-lit streets of Columbus. But before OI's corporate goons can scoop him up, he is suddenly grabbed, thrown into the back of a mysterious, speeding van, and blindfolded. When the bag is finally pulled off his head, Wade finds himself standing inside a gritty, high-tech underground bunker, completely rigged with massive cooling fans, server racks, and advanced DIV-R treadmills. He looks up and finally meets the mastermind who rescued him, Samantha Cook, the brilliant, birthmark-sporting real-world woman behind the Art 3 Miss Avatar. Turns out, Samantha isn't just some solo basement-dwelling gamer. She is leading a literal underground resistance cell dedicated to bringing down innovative online industries. As Wade struggles to process his sudden, crushing grief over losing his aunt, Samantha gives him a much-needed reality check. She reveals her own deeply tragic backstory, explaining how her father died working off impossible debt inside Anoi Loyalty Centaura, dystopian corporate prison where everyday people are forced to farm digital coins until they literally drop dead. This heavy lore drop grounds Wade completely. The two share a quiet, genuine moment amidst the humming servers, bonding over their shared passion for protecting James Halliday's original, untainted vision of a free world. The scavenger hunt has officially evolved into a full-blown revolution. Back inside the sprawling digital borders of the OASIS, Nolan Sorrento is absolutely fuming that Percival slipped through his fingers in the physical world. Realizing that his massive corporate army, Obarked wearing Zixers, lacks the creative, independent juice to catch the high five, he formally recruits IROK to finish the job. We get a highly cinematic, menacing scene where Sorrento and the towering, heavily armored mercenary meet up. To prove he is absolutely not messing around, IROK shows off some seriously deep-cut, dark web loot. He casually summons the incredibly ominous skull of Ostrogoth, a legendary, glowing, magical artifact that looks like it was ripped straight out of an 80s heavy metal album, covered with the devastating power of the skull in play and a massive corporate bounty now resting on their heads. The rest of the High Five are in critical danger. The corporate hounds have and Samantha know they have to solve the second puzzle immediately, not just to win a fortune, but to literally save their own lives. The clock is relentlessly ticking, and the lines between the gritty physical world and the digital universe have completely vanished. With the stakes now literally live, the High Five huddle up to crack the clue for the Jade Key. Digging deep into the Halliday journals, they realize the second puzzle isn't about retro arcade games or high-speed racing. It is about a massive, lingering heartbreak. Halliday had a devastating, unrequited crush on a brilliant woman named Kira, who eventually married his best friend, Ogden Morrow. The clue points them directly to a recreation of a date Halliday went on with Kira. where they watched his absolute favorite horror movie. Suddenly, the bright neon lights of the Oasis vanish, replaced by the freezing, snow-covered exterior of the legendary Overlook Hotel. That's right, folks, we are officially stepping into a flawless, terrifyingly accurate digital recreation of Stanley Kubrick's cinematic masterpiece, The Shining. The environment is a total love letter to classic cinema, right down to the incredibly tacky 70s carpet pattern, the echoing typewriter sounds, and that eerie, lingering silence. But there is one massive, hilarious problem. Each has absolutely no idea what The Shining is. Never seen it. While Parzival, Artemis, Dato, and Sho are cautiously tiptoeing through the haunted halls, each is just casually wandering around like a lost tourist. This leads to some of the absolute best visual gags in the entire movie. Each turns a corner and bumps straight into the creepy, dead-eyed Grady twins standing at the end of the hallway. Before he can even process the intense, haunting vibes, the iconic elevator doors burst open, unleashing an absolute tidal wave of thick crimson blood that violently washes him down the corridor. It only gets crazier from there. The gang splits up, and each somehow manages to stumble right into the infamous Room 237. He finds the naked woman stepping out of the bathtub, but the horror immediately dials up to 11 when she rots away into a terrifying, cackling zombie. Suddenly, a literal axe bursts through the wooden bathroom door, recreating the legendary "Here's Johnny" moment, except this time, the decaying zombie is the one swinging the weapon. The entire sequence is an incredibly thrilling, pulse-pounding survival horror gauntlet. The High Five are desperately sprinting through the snowy hedge maze, dodging ghostly apparitions and a barrage of flying axes. It is a jaw-dropping visual spectacle that perfectly blends intense video game mechanics with legendary cinema history. But simply surviving the Overlook isn't enough to get the prize. They still have to figure out how Halliday's tragic, unspoken love for Kira ties into escaping this digital nightmare. While each is running for his absolute life from a naked, axe-wielding bathtub zombie and screaming his digital head off, Artemis is using her brain. She realizes that the High Five are treating the Overlook Hotel like a standard survival horror level. Halliday didn't design this puzzle to test their combat skills. He built it as a digital confession booth for his biggest, most painful regret. Halliday wasn't afraid of ghosts or twins in hallways. He was terrified of taking a leap of faith with the woman he loved. He never asked Kid Kira to dance, dodging a terrifying barrage of supernatural threats. Artemis finally breaks away from the frantic, snow-covered hedge maze and slips quietly into the hotel's opulent, dimly lit ballroom. The chaotic shrieks of the haunted hotel fade away, replaced by the eerie, upbeat tunes of a 1920s jazz band. In the center of the room, surrounded by swirling, ghostly dancers, stands a digital recreation of Kira waiting for a partner. Instead of running away or pulling a blaster, Artemis confidently walks right onto the polished wooden dance floor and extends her hand. With the jade key now secured, the pressure reaches a boiling point. The final hunt for the crystal key is on, and the clues point toward something even more cryptic and deeply personal. Halliday didn't just want to hide his treasure. He wanted someone to understand the regret that defined his later years. The High Five realized that the third and final key is hidden within the most elusive location of all, the exact spot where Halliday spent his final, lonely moments before his digital avatar, Anorak, was left to guard the egg. They tracked the clue to a quiet, serene, and seemingly empty castle perched high on a digital mountain peak. But when they arrive, it's not an epic boss fight that awaits them. Instead, they find a massive, intricate, fully functional replica of the classic Atari 2600 game, Adventure. It's a brilliant meta. This humble, blocky, single-screen game is where the very first Easter egg in history was born, and Halliday is paying tribute to his roots. The catch: it's not just about playing the game. The entire castle is a trap. Sorrento, having completely lost his patience, decides to go full-on scorched earth. He deploys a massive, glowing, and absolutely indestructible force, Fieldon or Bofosovox, which completely seals off the entire region. No one can get in, and no one can get out. Thousands of innocent players trapped inside the zone are watching in terror as an army of elite, piloted by UI's best mercenary soldiers, moves in to liquidate the High Five. It's an absolute bloodbath. We see massive mechs and tanks crashing through the castle walls, while Parzival, Artemis, each Dato Ansho are forced to put up the defensive fight of their lives. Dato pulls out an incredible high-level transformation sequence, turning into the legendary giant robo-gun. The visual spectacle of a towering silver-clad Gundam punching through massive AA tanks while lasers streak across the night sky is pure, unadulterated cinematic joy. But the odds are insurmountable. Daito is eventually cornered and zeroed out, his avatar shattering into millions of tiny pieces of light. Wade watches his friend disappear, his heart sinking, but there is no time to mourn. He realizes the only way to break the force field is to solve the game of adventure from the inside. He stares at the glowing pixelated screen, knowing that this simple ancient quest is the only thing standing between the world and a total corporate takeover. The moment they begin to twirl, the entire atmosphere of the room shifts. The haunting dread completely evaporates. Kira smiles, the ghostly dancers clear the floor, and the room transforms, revealing a hidden, glowing pedestal. Artemis steps up and proudly claims the shimmering jade key. It is a beautiful, surprisingly emotional victory that proves understanding the creators. Heart is just as important as knowing his favorite video games, but the celebration is cut incredibly short. The moment Artemis grabs the key and the scoreboard updates, the Overlook Hotel is suddenly breached. A massive swarm of OASIS, marching in perfect, terrifying synchronization, floods into the simulation. Sorrento's corporate army has finally cracked the location, and they are not looking to politely wait their turn. The classic, eerie silence of the legendary haunted hotel is instantly shattered by the deafening roar of thousands of futuristic assault rifles firing at once. What follows is a frantic, action-packed escape sequence. The High Five are forced to blast their way out of the legendary movie set, sprinting past the bloody elevator and diving out of windows just as Thuzzixers completely overrun the lobby. It is a dangerously narrow getaway, but our heroes manage to log out just in time. The scoreboard is updated, the High Five are still in the lead, but EOI is now breathing right down their digital necks. With the Jade Key now secured, the pressure reaches a boiling point. The final hunt for the Crystal Key is on, and the clues point towards something even more cryptic and deeply personal. Halliday didn't just want to hide his treasure. He wanted someone to understand the regret that defined his later years. The Hi-Fi realized that the third and final key is hidden within the most elusive location of all, the exact spot where Halliday spent his final lonely moments before his digital avatar, Anorak, was left to guard the egg. They tracked the clue to a quiet, serene, and seemingly empty castle perched high on a digital mountain peak. But when they arrive, it's not an epic boss fight that awaits them. Instead, they find a massive, intricate, fully functional replica of the classic Atari 2600 game, Adventure. It's a brilliant meta-twist. This humble, blocky, single-screen game is where the very first Easter egg in history was born. And Halliday is paying tribute to his roots. The catch: it's not just about playing the game. The entire castle is a trap. Sorrento, having completely lost his patience, decides to go full-on scorched earth. He deploys a massive, glowing, and absolutely indestructible force, Field and Orb Ophusuvox, which completely seals off the entire region. No one can get in, and no one can get out. Thousands of innocent players trapped inside the zone are watching in terror as an army of elite, piloted by OASIS' best mercenary soldiers, moves in to liquidate the High Five. It's an absolute bloodbath. We see massive mechs and tanks crashing through the castle walls, while Parzival, Art 3 EMIs, each, Daito, and Show are forced to put up the defensive fight of their lives. Daito pulls out an incredible, high-level transformation sequence, turning into the legendary giant robo-gun. The visual spectacle of a towering, silver-clad Gundam punching through massive IOI tanks while lasers streak across the night sky is pure, unadulterated cinematic joy. But the odds are insurmountable. Daito is eventually cornered and zeroed out, his avatar shattering into millions of tiny pieces of light. Wade watches his friend disappear, his heart sinking, but there is no time to mourn. He realizes the only way to break the force field is to solve the game of adventure from the inside. He stares at the glowing, pixelated screen, knowing that this simple, ancient quest is the only thing standing between the world and a total corporate takeover, while an absolute sci-fi apocalypse is raging outside the castle walls. Wade is huddled over a glowing, blocky screen, fighting a completely different kind of battle. The irony is completely off the charts. The fate of a trillion-dollar virtual universe hinges on a kid playing a pixelated Atari game from the 1870s, but Wade remembers the ultimate theme of Halliday's life. This final test isn't about beating the boss or getting the highest score. It's about the pure joy of the game. Wade navigates his tiny square avatar past the chunky, aggressive dragons, retrieves a hidden invisible dot, and drags it into the main room. The screen flashes, proudly revealing the name of the game's original programmer. Boom! The crystal key materializes directly into his hands. But no, Lanzarento is the absolute worst loser in gaming history. Realizing that Porzavel has the final key, Sorrento decides to flip the ultimate digital table. He activates the Cataclyster legendary, ridiculously overpowered bomb that wipes out everything in the entire sector. It detonates, unleashing a blinding, terrifying shockwave of pure white energy that instantly vaporizes every single avatar on the battlefield. Millions of players, the massive Isixir army, Sorrento himself, and tragically, the rest of the High Five, are instantly zeroed out, their avatars shattering into a chaotic storm of digital coins. The screen fades to absolute black. Game over, right? Wrong. As the digital dust finally settles, one single avatar is miraculously still standing. Because of a flawless, incredibly tedious side quest he completed way earlier in the story. He played a perfect game, of Pac-Man, and won a shiny, totally unassuming 1981 quarter. Turns out, that quarter wasn't just retro pocket change. It was a top-tier, one-time used extra life. With the battlefield completely empty, Wade strides up to the massive glowing final gate and slides the crystal key into the lock. He steps through and enters a serene, golden-lit recreation of James Halliday's childhood bedroom. Halliday's avatar is waiting. Holding the legendary shimmering Easter egg, he hands Wade the ultimate prize, officially crowning him the absolute ruler of the OASIS, but leaves him with one final, essential piece of wisdom. Reality is real. It is the only place you can get a decent meal. Wade unplugs, stepping back into the gritty physical world, a billionaire. The High Five officially take over the OASIS, permanently banning Joe Eyes, corporate greed. And they even force everyone to log off on Tuesdays and Thursdays just to go outside and touch some grass. Now that is what I call a perfectly executed